Dusklight Radio, man. I am so excited to have you here on the channel. For those of you that do not know who Dusklight Radio is, the channel is voiced by the world famous TJ Lea. For those of you that don't know who TJ is, as far as I'm concerned, he's not going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this because I happen to have been around the no sleep communities as well for quite some time. TJ Lea is the godfather of the no sleep communities, folks. He has been around for decades. He knows those communities like the back of his hand. And in some cases, he has been the judge and jury in certain cases around some of the theft and things like that have went around for years. He's been instrumental in helping writers further their careers. He is a writer first, actually, and a creator second, or as well at this point, mostly with Dusklight Radio. And so we're going to get into all of those things, the demonetization things, all the stuff that you guys want to talk about. But before we get into that, I do want to let TJ introduce himself to you guys a little bit. And then we're going to get into the interview. TJ, thank you for coming on, man. Welcome to the channel. Go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Grinless. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. I'm TJ Lea, or Dusklight Radio. I guess I'm still probably best known for the incredibly cringe creepypasta, The Expressionless, that I wrote nearly 15 years ago during the height of the creepypasta era, which went on to terrify an entire generation of people, which is very cool, despite the fact it is so badly written. But a little bit of pride for that. Obviously, I've written on No Sleep for, from 2011 to 2022 with the Sturgeon stuff that I've done that has found its way through places like Dark Somnium, of course. It's gone on to almost every major horror narration channel, including the No Sleep podcast. Now I do Dusklight Radio, where an in-universe sort of radio station where we do like D&D based on Sturgeon with my friends, as well as immersive narrations of my own content and everything else in between. And outside of that, I do professional wrestling, and that certainly keeps me busy as well. And writer first, voice actor, like audio creator second, but I love all of it. It's what keeps me going every day.
So I actually was a huge fan of wrestling growing up. NWO, WCW, all that stuff. It had its moment at the time for sure. Okay, so I do want to get a little bit more into your history, though, because you have been around so long, and because of your contribution to the creepypasta community. What kind of drew you to those communities? Because you did jump into them as basically a teenager. So, was it things even earlier in your life? I mean, how did you kind of get into those spaces, basically?
Yeah, so I've been writing. There's an anecdote I always tell people, which is I'm only really good at a couple things in life: talking, acting, writing. Those are basically my skills, and singing, I guess. And I've been doing all of them since I was about 4. And I started writing properly, I would say, when I was about 6 years old. And I've been in writing contests since I was like a little kid. And I remember winning my first writing contest, like this hot air balloon ride, made the papers when I was like 11. And that was like the moment where I was like, all right, I need to try and do more. And I didn't know about fanfic writing at the time. Like that wasn't a thing in the burgeoning days of like, early 2000s internet. At least I couldn't find it perhaps. And I was still writing fanfic, which shouldn't surprise anybody because most writers start that way. And the earliest online spaces I was writing in was Newgrounds, actually. I remember, and it's still there to this day, I believe, Tom Fulp was doing with a guy called Mastermind, was doing this BBS Battle Royale tribute. And that was just my excuse to kind of take a bunch of random users and then do like an anime fanfic. I mean, I was like 14 years old. So like in my high school breaks, like when it was rainy, I'd go on the computer in the library and just write some stuff up. And it was never very good, but it emboldened me to try stuff. Horror was something that I'd always been around. I kind of been a part of my life in some form or another. I would say that the reason I pivoted to horror when I was in my late teens was I've had night terrors since I was about 3, and I've never really been able to make sense of them. And obviously, when you're a little kid, routine night terrors are pretty bad, like because you don't have a frame of reference or an emotional regulation. So I was always really tired. I was always really lethargic, and I resented it. And then as I got older, I found the hallucinations really interesting. They still scared me, but I was so fascinated by the fact my brain was bringing these strange things up. And it was about maybe 16, I got into H.P. Lovecraft and found out that when he was young and all of the elder gods that he wrote about were based on his own night terrors. And that kind of sprung my interest. And it was just around this time that creepypasta was really getting big at that time. I think it may be a couple years prior, and the SCP Foundation as well. So my start actually didn't come in No Sleep. It was during that online horror phase, like Marble Hornets. I remember the feeling that I got from that very first Marble Hornets video, knowing a little bit about Slenderman, thinking Slenderman was real, like especially the way it was presented at that time, the feeling of just, there was that one smidge of you that it could be real. And I'll be honest, that's probably the moment where I was like, oh, I want to do this to other people. And The Expressionless kind of was born from that desire of, can I make something that becomes human folklore in the modern age of cynicism?
And so I do want to talk about that for just a little bit, if you don't mind, because with creepypasta, there is maybe 10 stories, we'll say, that are kind of the pillars of the genre, if you will. And as far as I'm concerned, The Expressionless is in that group. I mean, it's a major story. It's an incredibly well-known story. I mean, when I think about, Jeff the Killer, Laughing Jack, The Expressionless, it's a Russian sleep experiment. It's The Expressionless is in there, just, as far as I'm concerned. And so when that kind of came about, do you, kind of recall what you kind of landed on in terms of, themes and stuff? How that was it a real life experience, or was it just something that you came up with? I mean, how did that story get born, basically?
Yeah, so I had done a few test stories prior on No Sleep. I think it was like in the year that Pen Pal got released. I got really, really into No Sleep that summer. I was in university, and one of my electives was creative writing, and I had an incredible teacher called Robert, and just this phenomenal mind for literature. And he got me in this idea of, we have to find something that can evoke a powerful feeling. And he said, I'm going to give you guys 30 minutes during this lecture. Find an image, and then from the moment you have that image of 30 minutes, no more, no less, to write your story. And I, on instinct, being drawn to tragic and horror and unpleasant stuff, I went, I'll go on to nightmarefuel.com. And I went through the Nightmare Fuel gallery, and I just carried on until I felt something. And I stopped on the image of The Expressionless. And it really unsettled me. And I finally understood about the uncanny valley. And I was like, oh, okay, I now know what sort of this feeling I'm getting is. And I combined that with an experience I'd had up at Manchester Hospital. A couple nights prior to that, we had gone out, as you do at university. We'd gone on a bender, and one of our boys had gotten really, really sick. And we're sitting in A&E, and a woman was having a psychotic break. And it was just one of those moments where it was very sad to see, but also incredibly unsettling. She had no eyebrows. I remember her hands and her feet were bloody. I think she'd like walked outside or through some glass or something. And thankfully it was like resolved like pretty easily, like the staff restrained her and stuff. But it just left an impression on me. And I was like, all right, what can I do with that doesn't immediately, dox somebody or ape someone's experience? And I was like, all right, let's try and do an old legend like Cedar Sinai. I don't know why it came to mind. I think, just like, something that sounds legitimate. Let's do it in the 70s because that's a while ago. That has a bit of an older vibe to it. And the I am God thing, which obviously people are like, don't like, and I get that. It's because I was like, well, what is the most uncomfortable, strange thing? What would someone say in Psychosis? It's like, they'll say I am God, because why not? So I remember that was pretty much my inspiration, and that it was short because I had 30 minutes, and I was like, well, you know what? I don't want this to go to waste. So I remember straight away went on the Creepypasta website on my old Ivy Star account, hit post, and then just forgot about it for a couple of days until it went viral.
Okay, and so you're not writing as much anymore? You're not writing and contributing to No Sleep as much anymore?
Not on No Sleep, no. But I do write. I'm actually just about to send my first novel to my publishers. It's like an 850 word story. It's taken me 5 years, 850 page story, excuse me. It's taken me 5 years to write it. I've been putting out bits of it on my channel and Dark Somnium, and it's been received quite well. But I stopped writing on No Sleep. A couple reasons why. My dad was killed, and I just kind of, that year 2022, I just didn't have the ability to keep going. It just wasn't there for me. And after I went through the grieving process, I was in the middle of writing this book, and I was trying to experiment with narratives. I was like, I don't want to keep, I'd done first person horror for so long that I reached this juncture of, well, that's not really interesting to me anymore. I want to try, can I write a story where it's all transcripts? Can I write a story where it's an autopsy? Can I write a story where it's a play? And that was what, woke me up in the morning. And by the time that I had even a fleeting interest in No Sleep, Chrissy, the original admin, who I love very much, had basically sold or passed the subreddit onto a new admin. And that admin, and I want to say this with some, I don't want to be disrespectful, but they don't have a very good view of what No Sleep is. And it's now kind of at a point where it's driven so much traffic away. A lot of things have also downswung No Sleep as well, like Reddit's policies, but it's now reached a point where the days of what we had before are gone, and you're never going to get that. That's nostalgia, right? But
Sure.
Now I hear so many stories from colleagues, new and old, who are like, yeah, I can't post there. They immediately don't just remove the story, they'll ban the person, which is just ridiculous to me that, oh, you wrote a story that wasn't first person. We're going to ban you from this subreddit for a month, which is certainly something to dissuade your authors. And so for me, I also reached a point professionally where it made no more sense to release my stories for free, or at least in an environment where I couldn't use it for leverage in terms of viewership, audience retention, interest that you could pick up. And those things combined made me think, well, you know what? Like, I think I'm on the right path for me. And it's a shame because a lot of phenomenal writers now, they don't have that roadmap that we had back in 2019, 2020. Every other week, a colleague of mine would be signed. Every other week, a colleague would get a 6-figure deal or an acquisition rights deal. It was an incredible time to be doing the job. And now that's gone. I really do feel for either the still established writers who are still there and the new ones who are coming in. And I think it's unfortunately now that the space has moved where you want to rely on, ironically, on the narrators. You want a good narrator to take your story because you can go to an agent or a publisher and say, well, this story I did got 50,000 views or 1 million views in some cases. And when you have that number in your pocket, that's dollar signs to acquisitions managers. So for me, I just kind of decided that it was better to pivot away. I gave, 15 years of my life to doing horror that way. And it gave me so many benefits, but professionally, I was like, I need to kind of mature and move on, if that makes sense.
When I think about No Sleep and I think about the community there, I do, in my mind, view it that way still, even though I know that it's not, because there was a lot of writers like, Christian Wallace or T.W. Grimm. Great. It was a launch pad for a while, of where people could really get serious exposure.
Yes.
Obviously the relationship with the narrators, obviously there's good and bad and all that, but getting published and getting visibility. And I mean, I've incredible stories. So without it, I don't know that I would have got the relationships that I have now and met the people that I did. But at the same time, to your point, it's not the same anymore. It's just not. It's just not. And so I do want to talk a little bit about your transition from to YouTube essentially. And so when did you kind of decide, was it around that time? Because you didn't have to get on YouTube. You could have just said, well, I'm going to just try to get published. I'm, like the novel that you're writing right now. You could have said that. At what point in time did you think, I think I'd like to try telling the stories. I think I'd try to start narrating them. What kind of flip for you there?
So there was a few. It was really interesting. It's like a domino effect where there was. It goes back to 2018, and I wouldn't be in the horror business as a writer again, because I stopped writing from effectively. I kind of stopped entirely from 2015 to 2019. I focused on my personal life. I moved into teaching, and I just was like, no, this isn't like something that I've got time for. And it all started from one single email from Nick Antosca, who is the writer producer of Channel Zero and Hannibal and Antlers and a few things. And he effectively said, hey, we're doing Channel Zero season 5 after the Dream Door, and we want the Expressionless. And I remember the feeling of validation that I had of like, I am good enough. Because at that point, I hadn't written anything Sturgeon adjacent. I hadn't written anything of the book. None of my short stories, I had written nothing in 4 years, and my skill had kind of stagnated at, that age. And I was like, oh, I'm good enough to do this. And that kind of spurred me into then going on to No Sleep, which then turned into getting more adaptations, like working with people like Mr. Creeps, people like the No Sleep podcast, people like Dark Somnium, which then, of course, turned into doing my own channel. And I'd been on YouTube on and off since 2006. I was actually making animated music videos on my own personal channel while I was still in high school. And so I knew that the platform could yield some like good results. And I'd always tried on and off doing like vlogs and comedy skits. And sometimes they do well and sometimes they wouldn't. I never really fully committed. And Dusklight Radio came out of a desire while I was working for the No Sleep podcast. I did 2 shows for them called The Writer's Mythos, which was a fully staffed scripted show every 2 weeks about a certain writer. I'm really proud of it. And at this, I was also doing The Table Read, which was like an interview-based thing with a few different authors, people like Jack Anderson, who wrote The Left-Right Game. And I wanted a bit more of an outlet to express myself, and so Dusklight Radio came up. I thought, if I'm going to do something that's going to interest people, I'll try doing a fictional radio station, like very much Welcome to Night Vale, but a little bit more of the shorter, horror adjacent, and I can show my voice acting skills off. I think it wasn't for anything other than just a place to do something different and to really kind of express my acting skills at that time. Because back then, during the pandemic, there was such a hungry interest that even though Dusklight had probably 200 subscribers, I was getting 3,000 views a video because people were just so desperate while they were in lockdowns to have something entertaining. And so it was really gratifying at that time when I started.
Okay, and I do want to ask you a little bit about that, though, because I personally thought that the way that you set that up as a fictional radio station is cool. Obviously, I picked that up. You have radio in your name. It's different from some of the other things. Some of us, like myself, with the Mr. in the front or creepypasta in the name. You didn't do that. You differentiated yourself that way. Is the name Dusklight, is that from a universe that is in some of your stories, or where did that name come from exactly?
Ironically, just an a one-off name. I had put it in a story of mine called Headlights On, Headlights Off, where I talked about the Dusklight Theater or the Dusklight Circus. I think I did 2 of one of each. And I just liked the name. I thought Dusklight's really cool. I didn't want something with the creepypasta name. And I think because at 2021, I kind of looked ahead and I was like, I already think creepypasta, and it's already at its 10th or 11th anniversary, is a dying term. I don't want No Sleep because, again, there's a finite amount of how long that's going to stay in the lexicon. And I didn't want horror because horror is everywhere. And so I was like, you know what? Like, none of that works for me. And I'm non-binary, so like I didn't want Mr. because it doesn't bother me to have he, him pronouns as alongside they, them. I just didn't want to put that affectation on it. And I just thought like Dusklight just sounds kind of ethereal. It's got a nice ring to it. It's not a word that you see a lot. Like when I do a lot of thought processing before I kind of advertise or market anything. And I went and looked, it was like, okay, how many people have done this? How many people have done this name? And it just stood me out. And I also knew very early on that I didn't want Dusklight to just be horror narration. I wanted to be able to do my D&D on there, which obviously we did Nightmare Detectives. I wanted to be able to do gaming essay videos or true crime. I wanted it to be a melting pot of different things. And I knew if I put the words horror or creepypasta or No Sleep, that immediate association with my audience would be, okay, it's a horror channel, which it is by and large a horror narration channel. But the algorithm would also not really push me very much. And I don't think the discerning user would watch a video about my favorite JRPGs if they see it's like Dusklight horror or something. They'll be like, oh, I don't want to see that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like trying to understand my own brand a little bit more. So for me, it was an in-universe thing. Everything I try to do on Dusklight, and I think that's what appeals to my audience, is it's all in Sturgeon, and people love the connectivity aspect of being able to be a part of that. So having Dusklight in there was just a word, and now it's become, I hate to be capitalist about it, but it's a brand almost.
Sure. No, it is. It is actually. And there's some of your videos that I've watched actually that are non-horror related that, well, pardon me, non-narration related that we'll get into here in a bit. Okay. And so another thing that I wanted to bring up, because this was news to me, is that you have a working relationship with Dark Somnium, correct? You are his channel manager?
Yes. So
okay, yeah, go ahead.
I would say like more like an editor. It's like I never know what title to put on it. We've never really established it. Like I've said it on stream and I've said channel manager, channel editor. Like Ronnie does all the editing on his products himself. I want to be really clear on that. He is a maverick when it comes to his sound design, his instrumentation, his compositions are all him. I have occasionally done a couple of his videos, like I did Farmhouse, Jared Roberts last year. I did that entirely myself with that was me narrating it, me sound designing it, and that was just due to some personal stuff he needed me to step in. Same with the emergency broadcast system, but by and large, Ronnie does them. What I do is I will source the stories for him. I will edit them. Quite often they do need reformatting. They'll need some lexicon changes. Sometimes he'll do stories that are native English, as in British English, and I'll need to give him pronunciation guides. I'll cast for them. I'll get all the lines together. Sometimes I'll direct for them as well if it's a voice actor that we're not as familiar with. I will do his content organization. So I'll basically say, right, we'll do this day, this day, this day. I'll do sometimes like things like that, and I'll put it all together for him, and then we'll put it out. But in terms of the actual work he puts in, that's all Ronnie. He does not need anybody to help him with this composition. And that's what's kind of made him so special in the space, is that when you go to a Dark Somnium, you're going there not just for how he reads, you're going there for the sound design he does, and in particular, the original music he makes. And that's what makes him so fucking special. But yes, I basically, I guess channel editor might be the right one. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not really sure what title to put on it.
No, it's quite all right. Well, let me ask you this, because obviously with that going on, how did you guys write together, or where did your guys' relationship kind of start?
2019, he hit me up, and I don't remember what first story he wanted. It might have been the Bar series, but he reached out and he was like, "Hey man, I really, really like your stuff. Could I adapt this?" And normally, as you'll know, and now I do as well, doing the narration side of it, the exchanges are pretty brief. Generally speaking, it's like, yeah, of course you can. Here's the fee, or yeah, of course you can. Just credit me here, and then that's it. And for us, we just got on so well that we started exchanging ideas and suggestions. And I have a background in music and composition. And then he invited me to come and do some voices, which for anyone who's heard the Bar series, the voice of Amos is me, but it was done on an iPhone standing in a kitchen, which it just now, like, and you'll feel this, Grinless, now doing sound design, that makes me shudder with disgust. And credit to Ronnie, he never complained, and we did it, and it was just a huge success. I think the video is nearly on 2 million hits now. And Sturgeon became such a hit, and at the time, I was writing a series every month, because No Sleep's immediate sort of gratification model was that every story, if it gets big upvotes, of course you want to write more. That's tens of thousands of people reading it. So we developed a really good working relationship over the next couple years. And then when my working partnership with No Sleep Podcast ended, I had a small gap where I was sort of just commissioning from different places and working with my producer to get something ready. And it was very clear that I was not going to get the stuff that had been asked of me ready by these producers, by my agent. And I don't remember to this day how the conversation happened, but it was kind of like Ronnie needed some help with organizing things. I had a background in doing that, and he wanted to do more Sturgeon, and it just kind of developed from there. And I will say this on the record as I would off. He's one of the greatest people I've ever met. We're basically best friends. He effectively saved my life, and I think he'd say I saved his in different respects. And we've worked together pretty much ever since then.
I love hearing those stories. I really do. Obviously, if you've listened to any of the Grinless podcasts, which I think you've heard a few episodes, I talk about that. I talk about the relationships in this community, how important they are. And so I do want to ask you about that, because obviously you have seen a lot of stuff particularly with the no sleep community, things changing, policies changing, rules, theft. That community went through an entire evolution. You were very much a part in kind of refereeing that, if you will, or keeping things on the right track, at least from my view as an outsider watching the way that you conducted things. We are going through an event here.
Yes.
In 2026.
Yes.
Not one that I think any of us expected. And even if we did expect it, I don't think any of us expected it to get to this point. I know I certainly didn't. When I heard about you and Vidith getting demonetized earlier this year, which, by the way, guys, Dusklight, TJ and Vidith are monetized currently. So it's lovely to have him on the pod to talk about this stuff. But I didn't think anything about that, man, like at all. It just was like, oh, whatever. That's ridiculous. No big deal. I didn't really think anything of it. It's changed a bit for me. I'm a lot more concerned about, people are more concerned about it now, you know, because we've gotten to know more. Tell me a little bit about your initial demonetization and then getting it back. And then we'll get into where you are with this right now. How are you feeling about it now? Let's go ahead and go through your initial demonetization a few months back.
So it was really funny. I honestly, dude, when I heard your first Grinless podcast, I remember the feeling you were projecting out, and I understood it completely. I was like, dude, if they had put a mic in front of me the day after I got demonetized, I would have been 10 times more outraged than what you were. I was like, I could feel the venom, and I loved it. I was like, yes, give me that. Because dude, it's not even funny. Like, I'm going to pull up my uploads now, right? And I'm going to read you the title of the video the day before I got demonetized, because it's just the irony.
Okay, you're going to let it fly? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I put up a video that said... hold on, I need to go back for this, because this is... So I did 2 videos prior, which were about Vidith. I did Vidith is in trouble, and then he was demonetized for narrating stories legally. I talked about it, but like small 10-minute videos, nothing special. And over that time, Vidith was working with me, and, you know, doing his thing, and we were like getting questions like, well, are you going to get it? Is it going to happen to you? And I put up a video called "Is Dusklight at Risk?" It's still there. I'm not taking it down because it's a point of hubris. And I was like, well, no, I don't think we're at risk. And here's the reasons why. A lot of my stuff is in-house content. The rigging for Everett is something I paid for. That's mine. That's my IP. The background studio is not an asset. I paid for that. I commissioned it. So it's owned by me. The music is Epidemic Sound. I pay for that subscription, and Vato Elements for the SFX video. But all that stuff are assets I pay for and either own them or I have a license for them, which no matter what YouTube says about its AI guidelines, it doesn't matter, because if I'm paying for it and I've got licenses, you simply send the license off for a whitelist and you got no problems. I knew the system at that point. And I was like, also, we don't really do that much. We've done 30 and 30 twice, which, yes, is certainly a lot more uptick in activity, but we do all these other bits of content. And then 3 days later, I got demonetized. And I said to Vidith, brother, I feel like I've been targeted. And I said something in the video going, oh man, I bet you anything they're going to see this and knock me down. And sure enough, they did. Now, the first feeling was exactly what everyone else is, which is, well, first was, oh, it can't be real. And then that immediately went to, yep, that is demonetization. And I was just floored by it initially. And I kind of knew that because I had Vidith on board, I could not afford to sit around too long. And I've heard different things from different people. Some people got the text appeal, and some people got the 5-minute video appeal. I got the video appeal, in which case I just put it together really concisely, showed all my assets. And I even put it out there because I was like, you know what? Even though there is a slight issue with sharing everything with everybody, because everyone's going to start doing the same things, you've talked about this, I cannot gatekeep this. If I gatekeep this, I am going to hurt the community more than I'm going to help it. And also, it weeds out the people who are crying crocodile tears, who are slop tubers. Because the ones who are slop tubers, like, oh, well, you should tell us how to do it. I was like, okay, here you go. Buy assets. Be a real voice. Do real things. They'll just shut up because they can't do that. And so you win on both fronts. The actual community that's getting hurt goes, okay, this is what I have to do to change my content if I'm a real person, or this is what I have to show. And the ones who are sloppy, they can't do shit. So that was my feeling, just in the lead up to what happened before I go any further.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now you did put out an appeal video. Well, pardon me. You did come up with an appeal video. I did watch that. And for those of you that have not seen that, go to his channel. I believe it's still there, right?
It's still there.
Okay, yeah. Go to his channel, check those out if you guys want a little bit more of his story on this demonetization thing. And so you had the video option, and you went ahead and put, however you developed your content, and you submitted it. And then what happened at that point?
I was remonetized within, I think, a day, maybe a day and a half. Initially, the email came through within, I think, 18 hours, but the actual process took about 2 days. It was so quick that at initial, before I spoke to the agent, I thought that they had remonetized me in error, because I was like, well, there's no way. And I've heard stories that some people say they haven't been looked at. I cannot prove this, but I want to just say that not every person that views it actually comes as a metric. I don't know if there's something that YouTube does where they can actually watch it without watching it, because they referenced things in my video, but the view count did not reflect that they'd seen it, which tells me that somehow they're able to watch it without it actually reflecting on the view count. So I can't speak for anybody else, but I know there's been quite a few cases of people going, yeah, I put in a video, when they didn't look at it, they immediately denied it. So I don't know. But in my case, it was a shockingly quick one on Vidith, and I talked about it because Vidith took a lot longer. And I think in Vidith's case, it's because his library was so extensive. He had been around for nearly a decade, if not a decade. That's 1,000 videos. I had, you're talking under 200. So I think it was a lot easier for them to go through and check it and go, oh, okay, well, it's very clear that you're not AI, and here's your assets. And yeah, they remonetized me pretty much immediately. Now, that did mean I had to, I will say the frustrating bit has been some aspects of it where there is back pay, I'm still waiting on that. So it can take 3 months for anyone who is in that situation. Your revenue can be done the next month, or it can take up to 3 months to come back to you. So that has been a fun thing. But you've touched upon this already, and I thought it worth mentioning the idea of the demonetization. And it's terrifying, but I have to believe, in my case at least, that I already wasn't doing anything wrong. And that's not to say that anyone else is, but if I can kind of continue on, I've carried on my schedule as normal and I haven't been hit, it does make me wonder, and I don't think we have the answer, but it does make me wonder why some channels are allowed to either continue unimpeded with no demonetization, or can continue unimpeded when they're remonetized, but others that have not done anything wrong are just caught anyway. And that's where the imperfect system of this robot comes into it. I think it's really messy.
Well, I totally, absolutely. We've all noticed that. And so a couple things. Your channel is heavily narration, but you do have a lot of content that is not narration. And for example, a video game that I was particularly interested in a few years ago that was banned was Horses.
Oh,
and I couldn't get a copy of it. I couldn't get a copy of it. And you have a full playthrough on your channel, so I got to actually watch. I didn't end up buying a copy of it. I actually got to watch it on your channel. I was like, oh, okay, I can see the whole game now. So I got to see the whole game. But you do have a little bit of diversification content. You do. Yeah. There is definitely the TJ personality you can tell in certain videos. The way that I'm trying to describe this is that I feel like your channel has more of a better identity than just sitting there reading stuff off of a piece of paper story and then just posting it. And the other thing is that a lot of you write a lot. You've narrated your stories. You know, there's a couple people that have been in that bucket, like Jordan Group, Creepy Ghost Stories, where there are, there's authorship that goes along with the video. It's not necessarily permission or licensed work, which is a whole nother conversation, because under the DMCA fair use policy, it says, you can use it if you have a license and you pay for it. And then on the Inauthentic policy, it says you can't, if you didn't create it, you don't get to use it, which is totally bullshit. Are you worried about it at this point? Are you concerned going forward about getting hit again?
A little bit. I'm concerned about it in the same way that when I step out of my house, I might get hit by a car. Okay. I feel like this is my job, as is Dark Somnium. And there is a fear, but that fear, if that cripples me, I can't create. And I think the greatest sin, again, I can only say this as an artist, as a writer, the greatest sin I could commit upon myself is to not make art because I'm scared to. And I think for me, I have to go with that fear. If I get caught again, then it's like, okay, well, I have to trust the system, which is, as you've known, not the most reliable, but they did all right by me. And that's certainly does not mean that by my metric, everyone else should be done right by, because they clearly are fucking not. But in my case, I just go, okay, I'll appeal again, and hopefully the same thing happens. I haven't had to change anything, because in my mind, the quick remonetization, the apology I got, told me I was either caught in the crossfire necessarily, or there was an error made, in which case I shouldn't get caught. And I feel like at this point, where I'm doing a video every other day, and I've been doing that consistently on this schedule since remonetization 3 months ago, I've had no re-hits, and I only know of a few that have been re-hit. So in my case, no, I'm not worried. I think we still need to see what this new rule that the new YouTube CEO has put out is going to actually generate, because if they really go hard on this, then yeah, there is certainly a fear of that could be it. But I think the optics of trying to get rid of every essay tuber, every reader of stories, it's not only is it unfeasible, it's virtually impossible for them to do. If we look at it on a capital perspective, YouTube's bottom line is money and profit margins and how they make it. And essay tubers and drama tubers in particular, I do not like that genre, but I believe it's the second most profitable genre on the platform. They are not going to, they're not going to turn to their investors and go, yeah, we're going to ban this because we consider this slop. Their investors are going to go, you're going to ban a $500 million revenue for Q3? No, you're fucking not. And I think that's where there's going to be a little bit of a thing. Whereas the community we're in, it certainly generates YouTube a lot of money. But if you combine it with true crime, it's a lot of money. But I don't think it's as big as that. But there's certainly, like we talked about, domino effect. And I personally, looking at it from where I'm at, I worry about it. For sure, I worry about it. But as long as I do things, this is such a pansy way of saying this. As long as I do things the right way, that's all I can do is like do my own stories, do stories that are legally acquired properly, use real voice actors, use real music, use real assets. And as long as I continue to do that, if they catch me again, I simply go, hey guys, this is a professional message because the unprofessional one would not get me remonetized. Hey guys, thanks for the demonetization. Just to let you know, I'm still the same person I was when you remonetized me before. And I got to hope that does it. That's how I have to look at it.
Sure. Well, a couple things. A lot of people feel the way that you feel. I mean, It is a concern, but are you supposed to stop? I mean, how could you? One thing that I want to ask you about, though, that you brought this up, why do you think that some creators have been kind of taken offline and set to the side, and then there is another pool that has not? Why do you think that we're seeing it split right now?
Yes.
It's unfortunately it's split where we have one group demonetized, another group monetized. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
It's really hard to say because I believe that there are so many different things. I've listened to every theory you've put out, and I really think there's merit in a lot of them. I just think it's not one thing. I think when you have a media conglomerate magnet like YouTube with technicians that are being given and directives that they can't always follow because they are not congruent with other directives that they are given, and they are trying to manage a platform where there is, and I will say this, I do believe that the CEO's, I forget his name, but the CEO's policy on getting rid of slop is a good thing. Overall, is a very good thing.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yep.
It's so fucking hard now to delineate what is actually AI. And I don't watch television. So I watch like stuff on my TV, but YouTube has been what I consume my content on. I love watching video game essays. I love like theories. I love all this stuff. And even and I'm a young man and I've grown up around this. And even I am not immune. I think anyone who says they're immune to AI content, you gotta be more aware because you're not immune. Everyone can get caught. There is nobody in this world now, I think, who can fully, on a single hair glance, unless you're terminally online, go, that's AI. I've been caught out by it, and there is slop that is just across the plow. A lot of it's for kids. It's just like Elsagate, if anyone remembers that. And so I do think there's a merit to trying to get rid of it. The problem is that I don't think the technology is there. Well, it's clearly not there. Where these bots, these systems where they flag up certain identifiers of what is AI work. Because there are people where I have done this so many different ways, and I can't come to a conclusion of like, oh, okay, maybe it's just old channels that have massive backlogs. Well, no, because there are big channels that are still going. Maybe it's channels with the same thumbnail style. No, because some channels have that. And you just end up in a rabbit hole. I really don't know every flag that catches them. In my case, and this is what I believe, the reason that suddenly Dusklight Radio gets hit out of nowhere is we were in the middle of posting every single day from nothing. Now, YouTube says you can post up to, I think it's 7 times a day or 15 times a day. So that's not really the problem. It's that it was a flag identifier. A channel that had previously, in my case, been posting once a month, sometimes less than that, suddenly, boom, it's going up and up and up, and the sub count's going up. And I think that in itself would have done it. And then it looks at the content, and I went back and looked at all my videos, and I had this little intro, which I thought was like a nice, neat little thing of like, hey guys, this is week 2. And it was the same thing. Like the same thing for 7 or 8 videos. Then I'd switch it out for the next week. That isn't going to help. The same visualizer isn't going to help. There is a staticness to it. And if you only have, let's say it's 3 flags, those 3 flags then get sent to a moderator, or possibly an AI moderator. That AI moderator then goes, okay, did it have X? Yes. Did it have this? Yes. Did it have this? Yes. Okay, let's demonetize it. Let's make them tell us. Because the amount of channels on YouTube is astounding. I mean, we all know the statistic that there is more content uploaded to YouTube in one day that is on television's entire syndication history, which just boggles the mind. So I don't think people can actually moderate this. I don't think it's possible for a workforce to manually do this. What I think they do is they use it with a set of identifiers. They do the sweep. They will then catch a lot of people. It's like I guess crab fishing. You're not going to always get crabs. You'll get some other things in there, and you have to toss them back in the sea. And then the moderators will, if they're not overtaxed, will then look at that appeal. They'll see the appeal, and they'll decide if that is in fact worthy of a remonetization. And again, that system isn't perfect. We know this because real people with real voices, like yourself, have been caught in that. It could be that they're changing the rules and not telling us, well, actually, we don't want you using these kinds of thumbnails. We don't want you using these kinds of assets, but they're not telling us what that is. So the reason is really hard to identify. I can say why I think I got caught and why I got remonetized. When you look at Vidith, who had an extensive backlog, and we both talked about it, and he said this live as well, that he thinks it's because everything was the same. Every video, while the thumbnails were different, the visualizer, the outro was identical for years. And that is eventually going to get it caught. Since then, he's changed it up. He's done different things, and he hasn't been caught. If he was someone who was going to get demonetized a second time, I think it would have happened by now. And I haven't seen many channels get a second hit. And there's different reasons why they do. But in our case, like 3 months in, it's not happened yet. There's also been, I don't know if you'll agree with this, Grinless, I think that there's been a slowing down of demonetizations. There was a massive wave, and
it's cooling off for sure.
It's cooling off. And some channels are going to get back and some aren't. And again, like there's guys like Hong Kong Horror who do nothing slop. Like there's everything that he does is him. He has a certain way of speaking, and I've talked to him on the phone, and like his videos, he does sound a little bit like it's not AI, but it's got a very staticky tone to it, which is not his fault. But his stories are him and submitted stories or legends, and he still got caught. Jay Nightmare's got caught. So like it's not just people in our community as well. It's very, very, very hard. And a lot of YouTube partners are kind of not really saying a lot. When I spoke to the one who dealt with me, and I did verify it was a person, they just kind of said to me, well, we're really sorry you got caught in this. You're clearly an authentic creator. Our terms and services are designed to ensure that everyone is following YouTube guidelines, and those that are breaking it will be demonetized and suspended from the YouTube partnership. And it was very diplomatic as a response. It still felt very, automated. But I knew it was a person, and I did ask them, is there a way of following these guidelines? And all he said was, you just need to follow what's on the guideline system. And by the time that I could reply, that chat was closed. So it's frustrating for people like you, because you're trying to do everything the right way and you're asking them to play ball with you or meet us halfway, and they're not even willing to do that.
Something that you touched on earlier, we are rule followers, the true horror creators, the people that are by the book, that are not AI slop. Obviously, we know who those people are, right? They'll follow the rules. No DMCA strikes and all that. We'll comply. It does look like many of them have been swept up in it. I think for me, I'm going to try to play this however it goes. Some things that I've thought about is it being evaluated by a weighted catalog? So, for example, what if I play it like this? What if I say, okay, Grinless podcast, where I've put out 20 long form podcasts and 40 shorts, and I've got 60, and then I got 100 or 160 scary stories. Can I get back in if it's weighted? Is it, well, somebody looks at it and they go, okay, well, he's got 50% podcasts, he's not reading anything, he's got guests on, and 50% stories. Is that going to work? We don't know. There's just some things we just don't know yet. You said something else about the YouTube partner managers have been vague, unclear guidance. We've seen, you and Vidith got it back, couple others, but I don't know if, let me ask you this, because you touched on something. If you think that it's misfires, possibly, do you think that more demonetizations are coming?
That's really hard to say. There are so many different ways of looking at YouTube. And in order to answer this, I kind of need to preface that we live in a world right now where, and unfortunately this does permeate YouTube, so I can't not really say this. We live in a world where, regardless of one's affiliation, there is a lot of government control in media conglomeration now. And that does unfortunately reach to YouTube. Now, they have tried to stymie that flow by demonetizing channels that are peddling AI in a way that is designed strictly to rise the ire of people for whatever reason that might be. I'm really going to tread lightly, not get into the left versus the right, but it is very much an AI usage for political gain. And government oversight has kind of stretched to this point of promote the people that are pushing agendas that we like, and candidates we like, and suppress others. And a lot of places are bending to that. With YouTube, they have kind of taken this approach of where they look at AI content now, and I do believe that there are different tiers of AI content. There's slop content, which we talked about, where they want to get it away from kids, which is a fucking good thing. I don't think they'll ever get rid of YouTube playlists or explaining genres now. So most of you will have seen this. You'll see a channel with a thumbnail that will say all the Roman emperors and how they died explained. And it'll be like a bit of an MS Paint style thing. That is 99.9% of the time fully AI automated. It's an AI voice, it's AI visuals, it's edited by a person in terms of putting it all together. And they do gangbusters. That's the new hotness right now. And that is AI. And as long as that's making money and it is not peddling major misinformation, it can stay. The moment it starts to peddle a narrative or misinformation that is not accepted by the masses, it will get removed. Then there's another kind of AI. There is the kind of AI that is only designed for one thing and one thing only, that's bot farming. And in our community, there is a lot of that. There are channels where it's very, very clear, and they've been doing this for quite a few years now, because bot farming has been around a lot longer than most other kinds of AI content. And in fact, in our community, text-to-speech voices have permeated the genre for about a decade. There was a channel a long time called Reddit Incorporated that would literally just take stories, put them on the channel, get millions of views, and the guy would make crazy money, and then he just would ghost. Unfortunately, it's a thing. There's a German channel right now I cannot remember the name of, that is it doesn't even use, it just like takes stories, or it does ChatGPT generated things. It puts in a series of computer characters as a title rather than an actual title, and a random scary image, and just shoves it up, and it does, I don't think it does now, it does gangbusters, and it's bot farmed. The question really comes back to, where is the Eye of Sauron going to turn to? Because if the higher ups say, I have had enough, this AI is getting more frustrating, I'm telling all of you here to do more, and that's pressure from the government, from lobbyists, or from YouTube CEOs, all of which permeate together, they might just kind of go for a more heavy-handed approach, which could mean that we get caught again. I get caught again. It could be that they just, what was the phrase that was used? Cut off the gates of Eden. They cut you out of the garden and say, no more for you. I really don't know. And I don't want to be pessimistic about it, because obviously I'm saying this from a point of privilege of, I'm currently back in their good graces. The summer is going to be a really interesting period. And I think if we don't have any mass demonetizations hit by September, by like that peak CPM period, I think that's probably going to be it for a while. You kind of have to look to the market leaders in cases like this to see what's going to happen. My answer is I hope not, but I genuinely think that it's decisions made by people that will never ever even use the platform. They will look at it based on agenda, based on information campaigns, and based on money. Those are the three factors I believe they will utilize.
I also agree with you that if we do get to September, October, if there's several months that goes by with all quiet, then the tone, for me at least, is going to start to shift. I would be, even if I got remonetized today, TJ, I wouldn't feel super comfortable about it.
No, I need to
see. Yeah, I need to see, some. But let me ask you this, because I do want to pin you to an answer. Are you 50-50, or are you 60-40 one way or the other on if you think more are coming?
So I think I'm going to answer that in two phrases, so you get two answers. For my channel, and God, the last time I said this, I got demonetized. So I'm holding you to this, Grinless. I swear to God. If I say this and then I'll fucking email you, be like, the curse is real. Right. I believe that in my case, I should be okay based on just simple numbers and metrics of me and Vidith have carried on. We've done things we're not doing daily just because we don't want to push anything, but we're okay. Now, do I think more are going to come? If I'm pushed, I'd say it's 50-50. I think there are some channels that could probably get hit. I do wonder, and I think, you know what the answer comes down to? How many of the current demonetized channels will get remonetized at the end of that part in a 3-month period? If they don't, if none of them do, I think that sends a message to us personally, and Vidith and I have talked about this, that maybe our time is limited. What I would encourage anybody to do, and you've already been telling people to do this, is diversify on Spotify. Right. I understand if people are going to Rumble. Good fucking luck to you. Take anything of the affiliations that Rumble has out there. I don't care about any of that. People aren't going to follow you there. I'm sorry to tell you this. I'm not trying to burst anyone's bubble. We do an audio entertainment product, and Rumble is not that. Spotify is where you should be going. Go to a network place where there is actual good money to be had, good advertisers, good horror networks that can pick you up. Spread your content too thin, people won't follow. They simply won't. Like, you need to give them one direct place to go, put them there, and stay there. And I say this to be firm because I've seen so many people be a bit up in the air about it. Oh, should I go here? Should I go there? And so I've been saying Rumble, and I'm just like, why? Why would you go to Rumble over Spotify, the largest podcast distributor in the world, that you can take 1/10 of your audience and you'll make money? Even though it's small, you'll make money quickly. You won't make that on Rumble. Okay, so a couple things. I'm going to send you this email. I'm actually starting another podcast on my channel. I haven't released it yet, dude, because I don't know if it's too harsh. But it's called Clowns of the Crypt, and I was going to start highlighting some of our AI peers. I just sent you the thumbnail for the first one. It's going to be really good. Is this in my email? Yeah, I just sent you the first. Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point. Oh, yes. Delicious. You know what? I take it back. Put that on Rumble. Yeah, okay. Fucking Christ. You know what'd be funny is if you do that on Rumble and you make money. Dude, if you make more money on Rumble doing that, then oh my God. That's fucking funny, dude. I was going to start lighting them up. I've already got them made. I was going to have
I was 11 Labs was going to get its own episode for Clowns of the Crypt. Fuck you. Yeah, you started this for sure. Yeah, I was going to.
Hell yes.
I was going to go off on that.
Choice.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
So good. Please do. I frequently will share with my group chat of like AI slop we see. It's just, you have to laugh, because if you don't laugh, like it's no point, right?
Oh,
like,
they're everywhere, dude. And it's like, you know, in these other countries that I've talked about, Pakistan and this and that, and I'm not being racist or anything, but like these are countries that keep popping up with these channels that they don't celebrate Halloween. It's not allowed in the country. Horror content isn't allowed in the country. It's not legal. And they just,
I get that they want to make money, right? I get that, like for them, like especially with income being over there, like the dollar ratio is very different. And I understand that for them, that's a gateway to English. And to me, they are significantly less harmful than the ones in the Western world that do know better.
Because they know how to use it better. Yeah,
exactly. Like I don't. So I had a I think it was a Malaysian channel. I don't remember where they were from actually. But they were like, or Peru maybe, but they were like really nice. And they were like, oh, can you please help us? And I realized very quickly, well, no, because your terms of service is not the same as ours. So I actually, and on top of that, I was like, I don't know a way that I can help. If you're in a second world nation, or a developing nation where you don't have access to the skill set that would be needed to make these things, that's where AI is such a dangerous tool, because once you give people the ability to generate their own voices, their own imagination, you can't take it away. Although that bubble, I will, you know what? I will date myself. 2026. I will tell you right now, the main bubble will burst. It will fucking burst. I don't think AI will ever go away. I do think it's going to become a more accessible local level thing, that communities will make their own free versions that they can access, because it's too much of a tool that it's so fucking integral to society now in a way that is genuinely scary how quickly it has become assimilated into our culture. Like it came in quicker than cell phones, and there's no getting rid of it. Like it's not going to go. But I do think the major LLMs will not last. I fucking hope I'm right on that, but I do feel it's like the .com bubble a little bit. And I will say, like, for the third world, second world nations, telling them, well, you can't make these images, you can't do these stories. They're just gonna look at you like, well, how else am I supposed to fucking make money? Like, I can't go and learn these skills. Like, it's such a privileged point for me as a fucking Englishman, the land of the colonizers, to be like, go and learn this thing. It's like, well, they can't. So I don't have as much of a problem with them. They are not the reason. They're not the cause. They're not even really a symptom of why we are where we are. Whereas the ones in our side of the world, they do know better. They do know what they're doing, and they are. For them, it is an industry. There is no. I think one thing people need to realize about AI channels that are very successful, they don't think about you. They don't care about you. They don't think about anything you say. Anytime you send them a massive message telling them how much you hate AI, and more power to you, they will not read it. They will not acknowledge it. What they will do is they will check their bank account. They will see how much AdSense they're making, and they will keep going until the party is over. They will then shut that channel down. It will get terminated. They'll move on. They are sociopaths. They are no different to Wall Street bankers. They are not your friend. They are not even your enemy. They don't think about you any more than they think about an ant in the ground. If you want to make actionable change when you see these channels, just report them. Do not spend what limited time we have on this beautiful planet busting an aneurysm getting mad at them, because it just they won't read it. They are there for money. Like I've said this before, Grinless, and I'll say it here because it links in with AI. When you see something on YouTube or on X that is anger inducing or it's wrong, stop and think about it. Because your emotional receptor of your brain it activates 6 times faster than the logical part of your brain. Engagement bait is not just about happiness or horniness. It's anger, it's outrage, it's indignation. That's what AI can do as well. And it makes everybody money. Everything you see to some degree is monetizing. And that includes me. That includes Mr. Grinless. But you could be honest and ethical with your monetization. But don't waste your energy on things like that. Like, do the right thing. Support creators who are real. Support creators who are not trying to make you angry with fictional conflicts between two marginalized groups. Focus on the people in your community and don't let it get to you. Because honestly, it's a downward spiral, especially with AI on YouTube. Like, it's so. I think we get very upset about it, right? Like, we get very upset because it's our livelihoods. But for the community, you want them to rally behind you as a creator. for actionable change, like reporting a channel, but not spending so much emotional energy getting upset on your behalf, because I'm just reassuring you guys that they're not seeing it. It's not worth it.
So if you are on the fence about the possibility that more demonetizations could come, obviously none of us know, so we can, take out our crystal balls or whatever. Why do you think that more creators aren't necessarily speaking out about this? If in case it is an accident, if it is in case a junkyard dog bot that's went haywire, and there is a risk of, my position has always been that we are better off together, everybody together, cohesively fighting back against it. But it hasn't quite been that way. What is your opinion on that? What's your thoughts on that? What do you think?
I think that there's a lot of different reasons, as with anything of this complexity, as to why people aren't speaking about it. I think there's the obvious answer of, I like the junkyard dog analogy, by the way. I really enjoy that.
Thank you. I've been making up things up as I go.
It's good shit, because it's a good metaphor. And I think there are people who don't want to have the attention drawn to them, the eye of Sauron come onto them and be like, oh, well, actually now it's looking at me. It's that whole thing of by association. Honestly, I do think it boils down to money. And I say this with zero judgment, because YouTube is my job. So if you are making enough of an income, whether that's between you and your spouse, who may also be a YouTuber, or just like you and your spouse and their job is whatever, you cannot risk YouTube just dropping it. I will say it is such a massive job security risk. And I on that note, I did see some people going, well, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. And it's like, but it's a job. Like, if I'm good enough to do it where people are paying for it, or just by viewership, they're supporting it makes enough. I don't really feel like, especially if you've done it for years, I don't feel like you should be looking at people and going, oh, well, it's their fault. Like, how dare they? Like, if you're willing to consume the entertainment, you should be willing to at least, no one's asking you to give money, but sympathize with the creator when they lose that income, because we don't have that safety net. If you're in any other job, and you've got at least some degree of tenure or respect with your company, you will get a 30-day notice. If you've been there a long time, you'll get severance pay. If you've been there with a union, you'll have a union rep, but they can't fire you. They have to pay you. You only get suspended without pay or terminated without pay for truly egregious acts in the workplace. Things like stealing or harassment or abuse or just anything that's a violation of company policy. Pretty egregious to be completely terminated. And it does make people feel like criminals when they are dropped out like that. Like, they've done all these things, and then through no fault of their own, an income that could span anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 a month, depending on the channel you are, that could be supporting you and or a family and a staffing group. Because bear in mind, the further up the rung you go, you will have a staff. Because running channels solo at a certain point is not feasible. You need an editor. You need a proofreader, you need other voice actors, you need thumbnail art designers, you need all these other things. And when that number just goes from let's say 5K to 0K with no warning, no recompense, no ability to withdraw your fundage and look after yourself in that time frame. Now, obviously, a lot of people have Patreon, they have other sources of income, but still, that's so terrifying that it cripples you. Why would anybody who is following the rules and has staff and loved ones and children to pay and feed say anything if that risk is there? The risk is simply too great. And that's so shitty, because it makes the people who are not saying anything basically look like scabs. And I've seen comments of people going, well, this creator and that creator should be saying something. And on a certain level, yeah, okay, I get that. But are we in an attitude where if some of your favorites fall, everyone must fall? Is that the society we're in now, where when one person takes 10 lashes, everyone must? I don't think that's fair. I think the people who are breaking the rules should be punished. And I do think there is a bit of an obligation from the bigger creators to say something, but there is a risk, a very real risk. And it's asking a lot of people to do that. And it is very hard. And like anything of this situation, there's no nuance. I think that the fear of money being withheld from you, well, money is the biggest driver of anything we do, of course. And when you have money being held over your head, YouTube is effectively holding every creator hostage. So if you're upset, by which I mean the viewers or other channels, you should be upset at YouTube because the creator, yes, there are going to be some creators who are greedy, who are just like, I don't fucking care. It's all about me. And it is a cutthroat business. Fair enough. But the ones who you've always heard good things about that are staying silent, consider that if they say something, you'll feel good about it. Yeah, they said something. What would you feel if the next thing that happens is, I've now lost my income? This channel that you love is never coming back because I cannot afford to run it. Is it worth that moral victory? It's fucking hard, right? Like, I don't know. Like, Grinless, let me ask you, because I think this is something you've talked about extensively. Do you think for creators that they should take that risk? Because I think it's perfectly valid if you feel that way.
Well, so first of all, it is a complex situation. I have two answers to the question. So the first answer is yes, I do. Because if I was a bigger creator, I had more to lose, I would probably want to get out in front of it as best as I could. Obviously, the concern, the overarching concern here, I guess, is that if it does continue. Now, if it doesn't continue, great, who cares? We all go back to life as, regular scheduled programming, everything's cool, it's over. No problem. But if it does continue, we've essentially got 90 days of airtime between waves. So some of us are going to move on, like myself. I'm doing the Grinless podcast, that kind of thing. The air starts to come out of the fight starts to get deflated a little bit. So if we're together at one point in time, we might not be together at a different point in time. You see what I'm saying? So like if there's more of us, smaller creators, we'll say sub 600,000, because there are several like in this Discord chat that you're going to be invited to that are in the hundreds of thousands that are currently demonetized. Then if we go away, then what you have left basically is the bigger creators, and there are less of them. So at that point in time, if they get taken down in 6 months from now, then the crowd is kind of dispersed. If you're dispersing a riot, you understand? The riot's already calmed down. There's only a couple of them left. So from that point of view, I do think so. However, to your point, there is a risk involved, number one. And we don't know if it would even fucking help anything. There are so many ideas that have been floated around about, would you go on camera, right? I don't think that solves anything. For example, I think that if you are reading material that you didn't write, if you're using music that isn't yours, like Mew or Kevin MacLeod, if you're packing in B-roll that everybody else is getting from Adobe Stock and Envato and Pixabay, what difference does it make if you're on camera now in doing all this shit? None. So there isn't a proven. So in my mind, should we, on one hand, yes, we should be fucking losing it, flipping out, trying to, because some of the stories that I heard from the apocalypse, that I heard from Creepy Ghost Stories and some other people that were around in 2016, was that when they all got mass demonetized, first thing they did is they got together, Southern Cannibal, several other creators, and they went to X and they started a thread basically where they invited fans, and there was mass outrage, and eventually they got their monetization back. Well, that was 10 years ago. So 10 years later, we're not quite seeing that. Would it work? I don't know, because not enough people are getting remonetized. The scary part about this, and obviously I'm super happy for you and Vidith and Campfire Tales and Derek, but we don't have enough remonetization yet.
Right.
To point to anything that says, okay, well, if we do this, then we'll get this, basically, Now in 60 days, we might have more concrete information to point to go, okay, so-and-so got it back, so-and-so didn't get it back. Obviously, my channel will be a case study in itself, because I have the podcast now, and then I have the scary stories, and my hope, TJ, is that, as I get to the remonetization checkpoint, that I'll have more of a mix of content, and I will share with everyone the result of that. I'll let you guys know, hey, I got it back, or no, I didn't. And this is a complex problem. It's a very nuanced problem. I don't know that there is a one size.
I agree.
Fits all. Yeah. So that's kind of my take on it. Let me ask you this. goes on the other 50% side. If we go the other 50% side and more demonetization is coming and you get hit again, obviously there is a money thing. And I've said that before. This is not an inauthentic policy. This is a monetization policy. It's about money. They're basically saying, because they're not saying you can't tell scary stories anymore.
Right.
They're just saying we're not going to pay you for them anymore. That's all.
Yeah. That's the most egregious thing, dude. That's the part that I think is really upsetting for you, for a lot of people, and would be for me, is if I put in a lot of time into my editing and I put out a story that's mine, that's personal to me, and YouTube makes money off that and doesn't give it to me, like, oh, we're not gonna monetize you, we'll take it. That's where I think a lot of people's bugbear is that that's your money, that's your income, and they still get to profit while you are just told, be a good little boy and keep making, and maybe we'll let you back in the club. That's what I think upsets people a lot as well.
Right, to 100%. Yep, we'll come back. They're still running ads over it right now. So it's not monetized for you, but monetized for us. And so, you can keep doing it, but we're just not going to pay you. Here's my question to you. If it goes the other way and the temperature heats up for whatever reason, we see outcries, outrage here in a month or 2 or 3 or whatever, and you get to monetize it again, you have built an audience. You are well known in the community. You have a lot of relationships. Are you going to continue to upload for free?
Probably not. I probably would use YouTube in the way it used me. I think YouTube, I'm in a very privileged position where I have a very dedicated community and I've built an idea with Sturgeon. So when I started Dusklight Radio, I knew that I wanted to build a community of people that would be invested in its lore, in its inner workings, in the stories that I do through Sturgeon. And so I can only speak from my perspective of what I would do. Actually, I could also share a bit of what I talked about with Vidith, just to give it a bit of a nuanced take. But for me, no, I would use YouTube. I would probably strategize for a couple months, maybe 2-3 months, and say, hey, I'm going to keep doing videos on here and build a community with the intent that after that 3 months, this channel will be archived. I probably won't delete it because there's some lovely comments here, and there's like maybe I might be doing Unus Annus thing, but I would say, be ready. We're moving, and then the channel is going to be a monument to YouTube's greed and bring people over. And no matter what happens, no matter how big I am or anyone is, I will lose people. I'll probably lose somewhere in the range of 65 to 75% of my audience. And I think a lot of creators think that they won't, but they will. But I only need 20% of my audience to generate the buzz. And after a bit of time, maybe 2 months to 5 months of not being on YouTube, that group, if they love me enough and they were coming over anyway, they'll come back over onto the podcasting, and it'll take about 1.5 years of rebuilding. But I know on the podcast side of it that I won't get caught out with anything. There's nothing in YouTube's guidelines that matches Spotify's, and I can keep building that. And if YouTube's guidelines change, then the channel can be put back on. But I would use it, and I would encourage anybody with a following to continue to upload and use it to generate traffic elsewhere. Like I said, personally, you should generate it to one platform and put everything of your resources into that platform. And if people care about you enough, and they should, if you've got a good following, you will see that return. I also am quite lucky. My Patreon is very active, and I have a Discord server that's very active. So I've tried to invest in community building. And I think if you're a channel that, for whatever reason, hasn't done that, which is okay. Some people just want to get on and make spooky stories, and it makes a profit. But if you haven't invested in a community, if you are not cut with the times of how to diversify your content in terms of style and editing and marketing, I do think you're going to get left behind.
I do want to pivot a little bit to this Reddit situation because of your role in the No Sleep community. When this Reddit stuff came out about, basically not being allowed to read Reddit stories, I talked about it in a podcast episode. What is your opinion about that? Because there is kind of a double-edged. YouTube probably should have done something about this a long time ago, or maybe you wouldn't have spent the time and dedication you did into reform in those forums about the theft and things like that. At the same time, there is a tradition at this point that's years long, a relationship between horror narrators and those communities that are intact, that seem to be disrupted at this point in time, at least temporarily, or however you want to say it. What do you think about that? What do you think about, some of that stuff that's implied with the reading material that you did not create, and how that's going to affect writers in the Reddit community at large?
I think it's very interesting when you look at the original issues that YouTube and Reddit faced. Because it was kind of I wouldn't say it was a wild west, but it obviously, like any platform, there were moments of unproven commodities. I mean, YouTube was probably just over 10 years old at that time, whereas now YouTube is over 20, and it's grown a lot in that time frame. And every era is defined by things. And at that time, there were creators who are now long since cancelled. I have said this before on an interview. I'll tell you, this is a fun fact. Shane Dawson owes me somewhere in the range of $20,000 in unpaid revenue. I will never get that money because Shane Dawson is a piece of shit and was never going to give me money or anyone money, quite frankly. And I feel that that's not a controversial take.
Let it fly. You can say what you want here, TJ.
Everyone knows what Shane Dawson did. He stole my stuff, as a lot of creators did from that time. I feel like, without getting too personal about it, that the landscape was very different back then because actual horror creators would often pay. I mean, when I first was narrating horror content, it was 2012. And I was editing with the Volgan, Aaron McKee, Aaron is an incredible person. And the best SCP creator on the platform alongside the Exploring series, Mang, who's fucking amazing. And I was making stuff with him. I was making stuff with way back in the day, in the early time period. I was making stuff with like other horror creators. And it was a very different time back then. Like, I only ever took stories that were on the Creepypasta Wikia. And I did one No Sleep story, but I asked permission. But it was just weird back then. This is the early impetus days when you didn't really know what was going on. And so had someone adapted my stuff then, and they did, I didn't really care. I remember Mr. Creepypasta took one of The Expressionless and read it at a Texas con. And we fell out originally at the time. Because I was like, well, dude, like, you're making money at this community service as a broke student. And we didn't get on for a little while. And then we kind of, like, we don't really, like, we haven't talked in like a long time, but like we reconciled by, he apologized and he paid me for some stories. And that's about it really. But that was sort of the attitude then. It was like, sometimes it'd be okay, sometimes it wouldn't, and then you'd move on. By the time that we get to the situation with the blackout, at that point, there was a monopoly of people that would just go on and read stories, especially during the pandemic. So the one that we had massive problems with was Minilad. Minilad would basically use the screen capture function on his PC. He would go on, he would hide the username, so you couldn't even see the username, and he would just read them verbatim. Those videos would make a lot of money, an astounding amount of money. And then he would just refuse to pay anybody. And it was just daylight robbery. And at that time, where our stories, it wasn't just the fact that they were being taken from profit. The problem was that during that period of time, the number one story that was on the contest would oftentimes, especially if it went mega viral, it would often get acquired or it'd get looked at by a producer. That producer would say, hey, I work for X, Y, and Z person. Sometimes like, Jamie Lee Curtis, for example. I work for Jamie Lee Curtis. I've been checking out these stories. I love this story. We want to option it. And then if your story had been taken by people and had been illegally distributed, especially by people like Minilad, who ended up getting into a lot of controversy, that tainted the story, and that could damage a writer's ability to negotiate. Not heavily, obviously, but it's not great if it's out of your control. So if they say, well, we want the story taken down for exclusivity, and then it's been repurposed in other places and stolen, that's going to hurt you at the bidding table. So not only are you losing profit from a revenue perspective the industry standard is like a couple $100, but YouTubers at that time, at least, were making thousands. So, you would ask for at least a bit more than that. And you would then lose that negotiation as well. And so when we did the blackout, I was strictly just doing it from a writer's point of, these are the people that have taken from me, and almost none of them were horror YouTubers, funnily enough. And we felt that YouTube was doing very little because DMCA strikes were something that you really didn't want to do because they were a lot of headaches to get into it, but they did work. And overall, the blackout didn't achieve exactly what we wanted because it was largely a performative thing where we just, closed the subreddit for a little bit. I think it was for like a whole day. We got in Vice and we got in Bloody Disgusting and people took notice. We didn't really do a lot. The thing that made it work was nothing to do with me. I cannot stress that enough. Like, it was nothing to do with anyone else involved in the movement. It was entirely down to the fact that at that time, speaking out was happening. Me Too movement was happening. And it just turned out that the people who were stealing a lot of the shit were also terrible, terrible human beings. And that kind of cleaned it up. And then the Sleepless Watchdogs, which deserves its own shout out, really kind of stepped up and said, this is what you should be doing. This is how we deal with it. I would give advice, as would other writers who are industry standard, of this is what you should be getting paid. And it kind of formed this little bond of union between writers, and then they passed that down to newer writers. And now that's kind of been sort of lost by the wayside because the audience has dwindled and the interest isn't there. And I do think there's some writers who maybe feel like they don't deserve to get compensated by a big channel because no one's telling them that they should, because the numbers aren't as big on Reddit or whatever it is. And that kind of sucks in itself. But it's very different to now, because in before, writers could make very good money. I mean, I've made very good money from working with YouTubers of all shapes and sizes. And there's been times, and I'll say this on air, there was a time in my life where my car completely basically totaled on me, and I needed to be able to go to the hospital every day to take care of my dad. And a couple of particular YouTubers, I won't name them for the sake of I don't want to put them on the spot, especially when we talk money, but they gave me 4 figures for my Sturgeon stuff, an astounding amount of money to help make sure that I could pay for my parking costs to go to the hospital, which is not cheap, the gas costs, everything else. And I could not have taken care of my dad without that intervention. And that relationship meant that I could turn it from a side hustle into a job. Now, as you said, that's been disrupted, because now most of those YouTubers that have working relationships with writers, some of which rely on their rent to be paid by these YouTubers, are saying, well, I'm really sorry, I don't have income. I cannot pay my own rent. Like, some have savings, but that's fucked them up. It damages and disrupts an entire community of work. And it is nice to see that those writers are, for the most part, kind of rallying behind YouTubers as well, because it is a kind of income for them. Obviously, it does hurt to see some who are like good, long time coming. I get it though. And maybe if I hadn't done YouTube, I'd be like that. I get it. Like, but also I don't believe in living with the mistakes of the past all the time. Just because someone was not great before does not mean they can't change and get better and work on that. But yeah, it sucks for a lot of writers who would frequently just sell their stories. You have one writer sells 6 stories a month at a $100 pop. Well, that's a lot of money. It's $600 they're going to have that they wouldn't have otherwise had to feed their kids or to pay their rent. And, it affects more than just the YouTuber.
Well, and on that note, there is a lot of changes obviously going on with Reddit and those no sleep communities. As it pertains to the YouTube horror narration community on YouTube right now, how would you kind of describe that? Do you think the genre is becoming oversaturated, or is there still room for creators to grow and stand out? What do you think separates successful horror channels from those that gain traction?
My instinct is to say not being lazy, but unfortunately that's not how it works. I think the biggest factor is having a very good voice. If you have a very good reading voice, typically 2 octaves lower than mine, usually American, buttery smooth, and you take your time. And I will say, Grinless, there is a certain truth to the narration style is almost AI-like, and that's because of the way the algorithm and the audience favors it. That doesn't mean that when you hear a creator, they're trying to be AI or they are AI. They're simply doing the way they've been taught. I don't do that. I try and avoid reading like that. I've always had a dynamic style, and I've always known that I'll never make a massive channel out of it because it's, I yell and I kind of scream sometimes, and that's not what people want to listen to when they're falling asleep. But I think, and I've talked about this in my videos, if you said this earlier, if you use Kevin MacLeod, Mew, and I forget the third guy's name, but if you use those 3 standard YouTube music pieces with the same setup, even though YouTube tells you it's fine, and this is gaslighting on YouTube's part, even though they give you the resource to say, oh, it's okay, use this free music, use these free assets. Oh, that's slop. I do think they need to be clearer, but I think you need to be willing to transform and change. And I think some of the channels that have been around for a very long time that have not changed, and no judgment on this, I'm simply saying this is a fact, that they haven't changed. They have stuck to their ways, and it's worked for them. Why would you change if it's worked? But if they've been around for like 5 to 10 years, they're getting caught out. they now need to change. What they were doing doesn't work anymore. YouTube is telling them it doesn't work anymore. And usually, on the lifespan of a channel, if their views are not hitting that number, if they're not exceeding 10% of their viewership, that's telling them in every metric possible they're not. But obviously, if your channel is old and you are really relying on sort of just the sheer volume of number of videos, getting your retention numbers up and your monthly views, you don't really care until it hits you. And I think like there is room for growth and change. I think slop tubing is obviously the problem, as we've said before. Like, I think to answer your question, that's more prevalent than ever. However, I don't actually see a big difference in the level of saturation, and that could just be me. I'd like to know your thoughts on that in a moment, but for me, I think the problem is that YouTube by large is a platform where the audience demands that you change every year or two. And if you aren't willing to change little things, I'm not saying you have to change up the whole thing. If you aren't willing to change little things in assets, in content style, in how you approach the platform and your audience metrics and what they're asking for, I do think it will leave you behind. And now it's not just leaving you behind in views, it's possibly leaving you behind because of demonetization, because you're still doing the same thing you were doing 6 years ago. And there's only so long you can do that. If you're in television and you did the same thing without any variation for that long, you'd get canceled. Like, people moan about The Simpsons still being on the air, but it's changing. I don't watch it, but I know it's different. And it's no different. And I think that's kind of how we have to approach YouTube. It's like a television executives meeting every time you upload.
Yeah, you do have to evolve. I mean, for sure. And actually, that's going to be one of my questions here near the end, because I do want to ask you about that. But on that note, on some of those things that you mentioned, you were one of the ones early on that put out a guidance video to help creators, right? I mean, everybody knows that, that's the kind of person that you are. That's how you're revered in the community. And you reacted quickly. You put out a video to help folks. Has your thoughts changed about any of that since? Obviously, we've had some time. We've seen more demonetizations. What do you think creators need to do that are monetized to stay monetized? And for those that are demonetized, what do you think they need to do to get remonetized? Has anything that you originally put in that video, have your views on this changed at all?
Not really. I think what I would say is some channels that have been demonetized, that have then stayed doing the exact same things and have changed nothing, shouldn't be surprised when they get demonetized again, because at the end of the day, there's different kinds of demonetizations where you demonetized and then given a grace period of like, right, maybe you should wake up and change things, and even I did, even when I felt that I was wrongly demonetized, I still changed how I did some things. I was like, okay, let's not do dailies now. Let's change the thumbnails a little bit more. Let's make them a little bit more dynamic. Let's try and do a less reliance on certain assets. And that's worked. Vidith completely changed his visualizer, completely changed his sound design. But I've seen channels that are like, well, I don't know why I got demonetized and I'm going to appeal it. And then they'll use AI to appeal the AI banning. And that's not going to help you. If you triple down on your sort of reliance on AI-generated stories, on 11 Labs voices, on all these fictitious assets that don't actually need a human intervention, you're screaming into the void and you're not helping anybody. I think the average creator that is not doing that is just making stories but has been using the free assets, as much as it sucks, they're going to have to step up and do different things. I would never tell anybody they're going to have to be like Dark Somnium, like Vidith, like me, and suddenly know how to do sound design, suddenly know how to do composition. That's just not within people's wheelhouses. And we shouldn't gatekeep people's ability to tell conventionally like old stories and in a fun format. If you've got a good microphone and a voice that people like, that should be it. That should be all you need. We shouldn't be doing a two-tier system. Well, if you don't have a degree from Brown University, you can't, make stories. That's silly and just, very ableist as well. What I think though is that if YouTube is sending a very clear signal of you at least need to do some different things, pay a $10 subscription every month to Epidemic Sound and get some music, because there's a library. It's so fucking vast that you're very rarely going to run into the same same issues. Things like that, I think people need to do. I think overall, my feelings haven't changed. I just think people need to be willing to engage with the system. They can't just kick and scream on the one problem and not address anything themselves.
Okay. And then one other thing I want to ask you about, because we're seeing this, well, we've seen more of it over the last 4 weeks, I think, on YouTube than I've seen in years. How are you feeling about people being on camera? Do you think that that has anything to do with it? And will you do it if push comes to shove? If we get any information that says, you know, if you're on camera, you know, concrete, because we haven't had that. We haven't had concrete, do X and you get Y. Do you have any opinions on that about being on camera, being faceless, being a face basically, and not faceless content anymore?
I think it is extremely uncomfortable for YouTube to ask this of people in an age where we are routinely giving up our privacy. In an age where every big tech company has found ways to illegally look at our data, to look at our personal information, and we know they've done it. We know through subpoenas, through judiciary committees, where governments are frequently doing this, for a company to say, you cannot make money with us unless you put your face out there for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to see. I know Vidith wouldn't do it, and I don't think he should be made to do it. Would I do it? Yes. I am one of the few creators that's already got a personality outside of this. Like I do wrestling. I've done like alternative modeling. Like, you know, my face is there. So do I want to do it? No, not at all. I do not want to do it. It is exposing in a way that I don't find comfortable. And it immediately also, people don't talk about this, but your branding as a horror creator is that people can put their own image on you. So like I put a picture of myself up once, I think, on the channel. People are like, oh, that's really cool. But most people are like, I won't seek it out. I don't want to know what you look like. They want their own like headcanon. Like Spirit Voices, one of my best friends, will never do it. She'll never put her face on camera. And again, I just don't think she should be made to. In an age where people are routinely proving that the lines between fandom and friendship, you know, are blurred, and people get parasocial and they get violent and dangerous. I don't want people to see that. You know, if wrestling takes off and they see that, that's different. I don't want that from my YouTube. And creepy ghost stories like did it. Props to him for doing it. That takes a lot of courage, a lot of fucking courage. And I think it's their way of calling a bluff sometimes, because let's do the elephant in the room. There are some channels that are using 11 Labs and they're not telling their audience, and they're simply saying, oh, this voice actor. And it's like, okay, I'll go and do a little Google. Well, that's funny. They don't have a website or a profile or an IMDb. Oh, that's interesting. It only links back to that channel. Interesting. I hate that more. Be honest with your bullshit. At least be honest with your audience about your bullshit. And because then you can't have your bluff called. So I get YouTube doing that to some degree. But like, technically I'm a VTuber. Technically, Everett is a horror VTuber. So for me to unmask would be completely conducive to my brand in that sense. Like, I don't want my face on the channel. I also just don't think it's what people want. Like, you know, people can go to my Instagram if they want that, and that's fine. And I've plugged it occasionally. But I think people like to think of me as a half-dead ghoul, and TJ as a purple crayon eating. Like, I like to make fun of myself because no one wants to get behind an egotist who thinks he's the fucking king shit. So like in my own universe, I'm the janitor who eats crayons and has a purple crayon wife and is relegated to a small cupboard under the stairs like a freak, like literally like a little Gollum goblin, because like that's just funny. And Everett takes the stage, and that's what people like. They like that aspect. And Grinless is an entity. If people see behind that, it doesn't often work. And this isn't in our community, but I think of Dream from the Minecraft community. The way that community dogpiled on him when he put his face out there, and he has said it, and I believe somebody said it was one of the worst marketing decisions he ever made was taking that mask off. And for me, I think if I have to stare at somebody when they're reading a story on camera, I think that just ruins my immersion. Because when you've got a visualizer, you're thinking about it, especially like in Dark Somnium's case, or sometimes my case with sound design. There's so much going on that when you're watching me sitting there quietly, you know, in between takes as sound effects are happening or whatever, it's just not enjoyable. And for me, like, I don't think it's fair to be asking that of the creator. I think incredible courage if you do. But yeah.
I do think you are right about it. I don't know that there's a lot of benefits to it. Not just your dream example is a great example, first of all, but there's a lot of other elements to this. You have to think about what clothes you want to wear, how you want to film. There's, you know, if you're a woman, are you wearing makeup or a man? However, there's a whole nother, this adds a whole nother layer of complexity and thought. You are an editor or a manager or you know, a partner, however you want to say it, with Dark Somnium. If you get information that it does come to that, because there are rumors about this. Again, there's so many things that we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. There's just rumor speculation. Concrete information that comes out that says, hey, Faceless channels is done. You have to be on or some portion of the content.
Yeah.
Would you feel comfortable suggesting or saying it's either this or we're done? If it comes down to it, do you think that he would get on camera? Do you think, if basically, okay. Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
I think Ronnie would. Like Ronnie and I have done this long enough where like he wouldn't, do I think he'd feel fully comfortable? No. But he's streamed enough times. Like he's been on camera enough times over the years. He would do it. Yeah. It would be on that level with it being, you know, a company, if you will, like there's staff and whatnot. If we had to choose between losing our homes and going hungry versus putting the camera on, yeah. For me, it's easier. I do have two people that work for Dusklight Radio, but like, you know, in that sense, like if they turned to me and they were like, well, we really need this, we're going to, you know, survive. Again, it stops being about me at that moment. I still think it's uncomfortable, but for me and for Ronnie in particular, yeah, I think I could say for him, would he be super enthused about it? Fuck no. Absolutely not. Would he do it? Yeah. Like we've read stories live on streams before. I think that wouldn't be the reason that we would walk away. Now, I can't speak for what would make him walk away, but I think the only reason overall that I could think of that we would both walk away would be, like we said, demonetization without any path forward to getting back on there, without like completely nuking the channel and its ability to make money in the first place and starting from scratch. In which case it's like, well, why bother? The podcast already does this well. Like, let's just move over there. Okay, and now Vidith, I mean, you know, he may end up coming on here, but you said that you don't think he would if it came down to it. Okay. No, Vidith is someone who is a good friend of mine, so I want to be very mindful of how I sort of say it. Same with Lucy.
Sure.
Both of them are, now I've seen Lucy. I have actually not seen Vidith's face, and I've known Vidith for a long time. I've never asked, nor am I going to, because I feel like I'm an ambivert. I'm very comfortable. I've done quite a lot of interviews in my time, so like I get used to it. And you're easy to talk to. But I'm very much like I'm cool with just doing it, getting out there, and same with my face being out there. Vidith just isn't like that. He is a very private. No, I wouldn't say shy, but like it just isn't something that he wants out there. He doesn't want his face on the internet, and he has 100,000 people that follow his shit. And I think for him, it's a very exposing thing. And I feel like it's a massive point of trust. Like I didn't see Lucy's face, Spirit Voices, for the first, we've known each other for 10 years near enough. And I don't think I saw Lucy's face until 6 years into knowing them. And it was just the point of trust. Like we live in an era, and you and I are a little bit older, like where it was like there was a time where it was really rare to show your face on the internet, especially when you're younger, stranger danger. And now we're in an era where it's just the most common thing to just put your face out there. No one thinks about it. Because obviously social media, right? We all have, I don't even bother with Facebook anymore. We went through this phase where everyone went on Facebook, all your stuff's there, everything's there. And so it was a given that on YouTube, it would be the same thing. And now we're kind of reaching another point. People are like, actually, no, I don't feel comfortable with these companies having my facial data, which can be scraped and used for an AI model. So they fall into that category. So I do believe if I turned around to Vidith right now and said, hey, bud, gun to your head, would you carry on with YouTube if your face is now? I think he would say no.
Okay. I do think that there are AI creators aside, right? Because the bulk of AI creators are not on camera. They're not getting on camera.
No.
Some of them will be on camera when they're a guest on Clowns of the Crypt, unwittingly. And so there are some creators in our space, though, that are not going to get on camera, period.
Sure.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Steven, he's already kind of been on camera. I don't even know what prompted that. I don't know if he was just one day he started doing that. You know, I don't know. Maybe
he went through a format where he was trying to be, at that time, I think he was trying to engage his audience in a different way. And I think it worked for a while. I can't speak to it, but again, I know why he's kind of gone the way he has now. But like at the time, that was a lot of effort. That was a whole team of people. You know, and it was really good for him. I remember looking at it going, God damn, like good for you, Steven. That's fucking sick. But as you get bigger, as money becomes more plentiful, you're at, what's that whole phrase? Getting used to sleeping with silken sheets. Is that the phrase?
I always forget how it's said. You're on the right track, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's that idea of you get comfortable, and no one's immune to this. No man, woman, individual is immune to this. You get comfortable. You worked hard to get to that point where your mortgage is paid for the next year. You maybe have moved into a new house. You're just in insane wealth that was never there before. Why would you keep doing the same thing if less is getting you the same profit?
Right.
That's just it doesn't make any sense. Like I'm not gonna judge anybody for that. Like if you can get there by doing less, I get it. The problem is when you start automating it. Therein lies the problem.
Yes, totally. Well, and you know, some folks, I think we all know that the COVID boom is long behind us. Most people are making less now than they did, you know, at that point in time. It was a different situation. People were home, consuming content left and right. It is what it is. And so now having to just get demonetized out of the blue with nothing really going on, and then, you know, being forced to be on camera. And I'm not saying that's the case, guys. For those of you listening to that, we don't know that. This is just things that are being discussed amongst the community.
Yeah.
People are trying to figure this out, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's strange times that we're living in, if that's the direction that this goes. I do want to ask you this, though. Do you have any thoughts on the AI horror narrators continuing? Because despite demonetization, we have not seen them stop. Some have continued to upload. And I think the concern is, or rather the request from the horror community is that this inauthentic policy doesn't say you can't use AI in it anywhere. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it should have. It should have just been that, and we can move on. You know, you can't use this, you can't tell a story with a voice, but YouTube didn't do that. Do you think it could escalate to a point where it is outright struck off the platform, or do you think the rules will evolve again if they just continue pounding YouTube with AI horror stories, basically?
I don't think they'll stop until the money dries out.
Okay,
honestly,
so
the simple truth is that like I said before, we are looking at it from a point of ethics. We are looking at it from a point of livelihood. They are looking at it as a profit margin. We live in a world where people will ensure this world burns and will count their money as they suffocate in their homes as the world burns. Like greed is something so truly powerful, it cannot be quantified in human words. I'm not a pessimist. I think the world can get better, and I do have to believe that. I truly, truly do. But there are people who will keep funding data centers that, you know, bring in this water that cannot be, it cannot be replaced. It's so much of it is being turned from seawater to fresh water. We can't keep up. It will eventually cause irreparable damage. And the people that are profiting from that on the AI channels will not stop using it en masse and will not stop profiting from it en masse until their revenue is taken away. They're never going to stop. Trying to reason with them is not going to work because, again, it comes back to this idea of why would they stop if they're making crazy money from it? It's very easy for us to feel a certain way morally about it. But when they are making $6,000, $16,000, $20,000, and that's paying their bills and all they got to do is put a prompt in, put it together, stitch it up and go, of course they're not going to stop. I think YouTube would have to be, and this is where the problem is, YouTube would have to be more heavy-handed and fully force out, which I don't think they can do. And therein lies the messiness of this. They're taking on this Sisyphean task of trying to push that boulder up the hill, but they don't have enough people to help with the boulder. And the boulder is only getting bigger and the hill is only getting steeper. And they're just not equipped to it. So I think we just kind of have to separate from those AI channels. We need to put them in a little ring fence and keep them away and be like, well, they're not us. We don't claim them. because there's nothing that we on our level can do, and YouTube can try, but I think it's also trying to have it both ways. And it's the problem of like, we want them to be better with their moderation, but by being better and taking out all the slop tubers, those two things don't go hand in hand. They don't have the ability to get better and be more refined while also catching as many slop tubers as they can. It's such a nascent, small thing right now that they have that it's going to take time to refine it. And it could be a year, it could be 3 years. I really don't know, but I do know that for as long as there are people and as long as LLMs exist and as long as there is money to be had, slop tubers will keep popping up.
Let me ask you this. In terms of format, something that I had noticed that you hadn't really done on your channel is YouTube Shorts. Is there a reason for that? Or is there anything in the pipeline for anything like that? Or is it just not something you want to get into?
It just wasn't really something that interested me. I've talked about it, but you kind of need to be like, to do additional work on top of what I do is just a bit of a challenge. For me personally, when I make a video, one that I edit, like the Antlion series, that is a lot of time. I've shown my process on Fruity Loops. Like that's obviously directing it, getting all the recordings done. That's after writing the damn thing. And then it's putting in the right sound design, the right SFX. And that's not including rendering, which could be a 16-hour, possibly 30-hour project. And I saw one channel, I won't name it. It was definitely an AI channel. And they were like, me and my team spend 17 hours on a video at a time. And I looked and I was like, okay, let's have a look at this video. What's 17 hours of it? And it was just bro sat in front of a green screen talking about disappearances. Okay. I'm like, 17 hours on that, huh? That's very interesting. Were you scratching your balls for 16 hours of it? I just found it really funny because they're clearly doing that as a point of like, what I will say is these channels, they pay attention to what real channels say and they mimic. They are like skinwalkers. They will literally find what buzzwords work for us and they'll take them and go, I am an authentic channel and I do six, like if I say I do 18 hours, they'll say they do 16 hours. Like they find little ways of doing it. It's very clever. But for me, like it's a lot of work to get a production out. And especially now where I just put out the Search and Rescue series. And We Try Horror edited that, but it was still 3 hours of recording that myself. And then it was days of getting the casting and getting all the voices together. And then it was organized again, putting it through the visualizer and then rendering the visualizer, then taking the visualizer down and then putting it with my existing rigging and my Patreon shout outs, then re-uploading that and going through the copyright protection stuff. That is exhaustive. And I could feasibly take a bit of that and put it into shorts, but the traffic isn't likely to go there. Like sometimes it does. It's a level of work I'm not willing to put in when the video will generally do all right itself. Like it's also a different kind of short, scary stories. I've thought about it, but also doing a video every other day right now is exhaustive enough that I don't want to stretch myself too thin. I have heard some things about shorts, but I don't really know if it would hit me very much necessarily.
Is there anything in the pipeline that you are working on that listeners can expect? Any new formats, anything outside of horror narration that is coming up, or any cool projects with horror narration that's kind of coming up in the pipeline?
Yeah, we're always doing new things at the moment. We're looking to adapt a few classics once we've gotten in touch with the authors, unless they're unavailable, obviously, which we won't. But we're doing like by the time this goes out, it'll already be done, so I won't say that one. But we've got a few things up during the summer. Dark Somnium and I are adapting my Beneath the Static series, which is, in my opinion, my best novella I've ever done. It's been off the air for a while now. We haven't had it on any audio format outside of the Chilling app many years ago. It's never been on YouTube. It's been off Reddit for a very long time. The book got pulled, which actually might be a fun / dark anecdote to wrap up on. So I might come back to that if you want to hear it. I've never talked about this on live anywhere, so I might share that. But we reworked it, put it out, and that's coming out in the summer. It's like 7 hours long. It's I Know What You Did Last Summer meets Stephen King's It meets The Truman Show, and I'm very proud of that. Outside of that, though, in wrestling, I can't even say what I'm doing in wrestling. I'm back to Japan at the end of the year, so that's going to be fun. Going to go out there and do some stuff there. But in writing my book, I'm hoping it will land with a final publisher by the end of this year. Outside of that, it's under an NDA, unfortunately, but I did get a very, very promising email. I might be able to tell you about off the air, but it's going to be a very good 2-3 years, both for me and for Dusklight Radio.
On the topic of your book, actually, though, I do want to ask about that because of your contributions in the community, things that you're known for, obviously the expressionless. What type of stories do you like? What interests you? And it doesn't even have to be things that every popular ones or things that get the most views. I mean, when you're by yourself and you're enjoying some of this stuff, what do you like? What sticks out to you?
Oh, okay. Okay, so one of the best books I've read ever is House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. That deeply informed how I made my book, 3Bs in All of Europe, because I realized that you can completely transform structure. Words do not have to appear on the page in the way that they are framed. And I got deeply, and I've never really left the postmodern movement in the last 10 years, but House of Leaves is now a staple for anyone who enjoys strange fiction, and it took him 10 years to write it, and he may be the greatest postmodern writer of our time. I don't think anyone's ever done what he's doing, where you know, there are things you have to do that are a little bit laborious, like taking your book and then going up to a fucking mirror to read it. That's asking a lot of a reader, I will say, or using certain light formats and stuff, but it's incredible, and it's never been done. Outside of that, Sequoia Nagamatsu's How High We Go in the Dark is the greatest book I've ever read about grief and the afterlife. It is nothing really makes me cry in literature. That book made me cry within 1.5 chapters. It's just amazing. Sequoia is amazing. I'd say Carmen Mercado, Her Body and Other Works for more experimental horror is incredible. There is a series that I really like that I would recommend to anybody. It looks on the surface like it's Amazon, not Amazon slop, but one of those Amazon books that's pushed to you when it's not actually that good. But it's by an author called Uketsu, and there's a series of them. They're called the Strange series, and the first one is Strange Pictures, which is just, it's about understanding drawings, these weird little basic child's drawings and what they actually mean. Then there's Strange Houses and Strange Buildings, and I'm sure he's going to do more, but I adore them. I think they are such fun reads, and they're really entertaining. On a scholarly level, I really enjoy reading Schopenhauer and Kant and Wittgenstein. I really enjoy Danse Macabre by Stephen King. It's probably the greatest almanac of what horror is and can be, both for the reader and for the author. It really helped shape my understanding of what I'm doing and how to get better at it. Last one, I'd say, it's lazy, but Lovecraft. Actually, no, I'll say Lovecraft and August Derleth. August Derleth is basically Lovecraft without so much overt racism, but they are really just really entertaining to sort of read in my spare time. Things that I won't get to adapt, basically. Because anything else I say, like the Left-Right Game, like the Tenancy Survival Guide, Pen Pal, they're all things I could eventually adapt. So I feel like they're cheating.
No, it's okay. Well, some of those that you mentioned I am aware of, and some not. So I'm definitely going to go to Amazon when this is over and order those books. Okay, let me ask you this. You have been on YouTube for several years. You've been around the No Sleep community for years, obviously. You've seen this community change multiple times over. You've seen a lot of things happen. You see this happening right now. What do you think the horror genre is going to look like on YouTube in the next 5 years? 5 years from now.
Ooh, man, I could give you a really pessimistic answer or a really optimistic answer. That really depends.
We've got time for both. Yeah, we've got time for both. Go ahead.
Let's give one for each. Pragmatism, optimism, and pessimism. Which one do you want first?
Whatever comes to your mind. Whatever pops in your mind first. Go ahead.
Okay, let's start with pessimism. Pessimism is that eventually the both the lobbyists that fund Google and YouTube, as well as tech bros and YouTube's own governance body, not governance body, what am I saying? YouTube's own moderation team and CEO and the leadership committee basically say, we've had enough. We are done with this. We're done with slop tubers. We're done with drama YouTubers. We're done with misinformation. We're done with all of it. Good, bad, left, right, center. We're done with it. And they, in their own ham-fisted way, just start sweeping and getting rid of anything that they consider to be under the terms of service. They might update the terms of service to be like, you cannot profit off of reading other people's work. You cannot profit off of reading your own work because it now counts as non-transformative content. We don't want radio shows that are not licensed radio shows that are under a network. We don't want that anymore. We're not willing to pay for that. We'll take the financial hit because we're YouTube and we have no other competitors. And like, more power to anybody that's like, we're going to be the YouTube. I saw like BuzzFeed did an article about it, and I'm like, fucking BuzzFeed thinks they're going to beat YouTube. That's hilarious. That's adorable. It's not going to happen. We live in an era of monopolies. No one is beating YouTube, and you're not going to see that happen, at least not for 10 years. So they can afford to take the hit. They can afford to just lose the money, and they will lose money. But they could just say, no, we don't want drama tubers because all you're doing is sitting there with the camera, stopping and reacting to every 3 minutes of or 3 lines of another video. And it's just like an endless feedback loop, an Ouroboros, basically. They might not want that. And that means that the platform it goes back to podcasting. It goes back to being a more radio fronted format. And in which case, everyone who does it as a job is going to have to adapt. Some people will not survive. Some people will lose their jobs. Some people will have to leave, and it will just be a time in their lives where they're like, man, I was watching YouTube. That was really cool. Just like being a radio DJ and you age out of it, it could happen. Some people will make it work. A lot won't. And that era will end, and the online horror space will adapt. The pragmatism answer is that some channels will not get reinvited back to the program, and they will die. And they're going to have to basically delete the channel entirely and start a new one if they are willing to put the work in, which at that point, for many years, some people won't, and I wouldn't blame them. Some of them will move, and the ones that haven't been caught or have been remonetized will stay, and things will just truck along until the partnership program changes, and they might have to adapt. And YouTube will keep a very close eye and basically see if people can keep changing with the times or if they're going to fall back into the habits. And if they do, they will pull out the ban hammer again and swing it and say, we told you once, we're telling you again, stop being lazy, which is an oversimplification of what's going on, but that's what they'll basically say. Positive answer is that because the online horror space has never been bigger, it has never been more popular, it has never been more profitable, they will lax their guidelines, or they will at least just take their foot off the pedal of the junkyard dog, and these channels that have been hit will get reinstated after the 90-day period, and YouTube will probably not apologize and just go, oh, well, this thing's happened. And they will encourage more horror creation because now they have seen, just based on Kane Parsons alone, let alone the other YouTubers turned filmmakers, they now know the profit is so fucking high for what they're doing that it would be an absolute mistake to look at the next generation of moneymakers and turn them away. Why would you? It would be absolutely insane, especially when you consider the Backrooms was made on a $10 million budget, and as of the time of recording on the 6th of June, it has made $175 million. So, and I'm in the industry. So when I tell you that the buzz has never been bigger for online horror, I'm telling you, like, it's bigger than it was in 2020 because it's money. And Obsession has also been massive. Weapons has been massive. Sinners is still massive. And now Backrooms. And all of these, barring Sinners, have been made by YouTubers who made horror, transformative horror content turned into eventually Iron Lung as well has also done well. So the positive approach is that they encourage it. They push it. With changes, I don't think YouTube is the type that's going to go back on what they've done, but I do think they're going to be like, look, we were heavy-handed. Let's not do that anymore. You're not getting an apology out of us, but we will reinstate you. Friends. So those are my 3 scenarios.
Tremendous. And valid cases for each one, as a matter of fact. Hopefully, I would take the second or third one, hopefully.
Yes.
Okay, and TJ, where can our listeners find your work and support you? Is there any other places? Do you have a subreddit? Anything that's not on YouTube? And guys, just so you guys know, everybody listening, all of the links to his channel and things like that, his Patreon, it's all going to be in the description. Please go to that. Please click, support it. TJ is a pillar of this community. He's an important creator. These are the kinds of creators that we want to get behind and support. People that not only come on the show, but people that are in the community and legit. Is there any else, TJ, where people can locate your work or discover it?
Yes, there is my subreddit, but it is closed just because I'm not on there anymore. So like, it's just, I don't want, like you can get invited in, but I don't use Reddit very much. And it's just because there's a lot of spam bots now. So like my work is still on there. I am going to be moving it to my website, which will be both dusklightradio.com and tjlee.com, which I'm hoping will be up in the summer. So that'll be there and we'll update the link when it gets there. So Reddit's probably not going to do it. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Blue Sky. I'm not on any other social media. I'm not a fan of it. My Discord server is where I am in and my audience is in, and you can kind of proliferate. It's not paywalled. You can come in any time. It's called the Dusklight Radio listening station. Of course, it's my YouTube channel and my Instagram, the TJ Lea, if you care about seeing my face and my wrestling stuff, because that's all it is. It's just me, outfits I wear, and wrestling, and occasionally video games. But yeah, I'm not really on social media very much, and I'm happier for it. I'll tell you that much.
TJ, I greatly appreciate you coming on the show. You have been an incredible guest, and this has been a fantastic conversation. And you are an important member of this community, a purist, a pundit, a pillar of what has been grown in the creepypasta space. Is there any final thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with?
So I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you one that you might cut and one you can keep.
Fair enough.
So the first one is why the Beneath the Static got pulled. There's two real reasons why the book got pulled. First, we found out that the cover work was done by someone who ended up being quite abusive to his girlfriend, which sucks. And he disappeared, never answered for it. And I was like, oh, I don't want to keep this book going because Chelsea Rebecca from Dead Meat, who's a friend of mine, put a forward in the book and then endorsed it. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want her name next to that. The deeper problem, and this has never really been talked about on YouTube, and I'm not sure if it will be. So do you know, I'm going to preface this first. Do you know an author by the name of Nick Moorfox?
I do not.
Does that name ring a bell? Okay. So Nick wrote a few stories on No Sleep back in the day, and the most famous one was, I think my mother-in-law is trying to poison me. Now, this story is about a woman who thinks that her mother-in-law is trying to poison her. And it turns out that she's trying to save her from the main character's husband, who is trying to murder her. Now you think, why does this matter, TJ? Well, Nick Moorfox was a very important part of our community and a good friend, and he murdered his wife. He had put a forward in my book. He had helped make the book. During the period of 2020 to 2020, well, basically 2022, or even before that, he told us all in that community that his wife had died from COVID, and he supported a lot of us through our own griefs while his wife was in another room next to him. And eventually, he murdered her. I'm not going to talk about how he murdered her. I am not going to give any satisfaction to that fucking animal, but he did. And he got caught while eloping with his third wife, who was a true crime author. And I and everybody was so utterly disgusted. His name is Nicholas Kassotis. You can look this whole story up on the internet. He's now in prison. He will rot for the rest of his life. And I don't have the capital punishment here, and I don't believe in it. But God, I wish he got the death penalty. But he was a big part of the No Sleep community. And Jessica Chastain bought one of his stories for Netflix, an option. He, was massively successful, and he was a friend of mine. And he wrote that forward on the book next to Chelsea's name. And I was so truly disgusted that I took the book off, plus the other thing that had happened. And I could not tell anybody until his trial was done, which took years. So everyone was asking where it's gone. And I was like, I don't want to have it on there. And I have debated putting it on my channel, and I've chosen not to because I feel like it'll be platforming him and giving him attention, which he doesn't deserve. And that's like the main reason I've kind of been uncomfortable about it. But his stuff has been completely scrubbed. His account is now deleted from No Sleep. His stories are gone. You cannot find them anywhere. And that's a good thing because his work is just a confession for what he was going to do. But the most haunting thing is that he wrote that story 7 years before he did what he did. And it's just truly bone chilling. In our community, you hear about, dodgy people and unpleasant individuals. You never hear about that. And for some reason, it's not made like any of the channels talking about it. I don't know how it hasn't. But that is something. I don't know if that'll make it into the interview, but that is the first thing to share.
Well, I am going to include that actually. I actually just looked that up while you were saying it, and there is information about that's pretty wild. Maybe I'll do an episode on it. Who knows? You never know.
If you do, I will say this just to bookend that. Mindy, his wife, and their family had a GoFundMe. I don't think it's still active anymore, but there is I believe there is a page dedicated to her and people of victims of domestic abuse. If you take anything from the stories you read about Nick and what he did and his deceit, please go and check that out. Above all other things, don't try and consume his work. It doesn't deserve to be consumed, wherever it may still be lurking. But that is my own tangential connection to it, and it's something that the reason it hurt me, and it hurt me on a much lesser scale than his actual victims, is that when my father had passed away, and I was struggling with the grief because he was killed, I went to Nick for advice, and I called him up, and he helped me with the ideas for the tombstone and stuff, and would tell me about how his grief was with Mindy while she was alive in the next room. He killed her 5 months after the conversations I had with him, and that will probably haunt me for the rest of my fucking life. Knowing he got off on that, because I had to submit that to the prosecution because he had messages that he hadn't deleted, which proved they was premeditation, and I will show you them off the air. It was genuinely, there were people who were hurt more than me by what he did. Like, there were people he tried to meet up with IRL from the No Sleep community. But it will haunt me to my dying day to know that I was grieving in front of him and he was getting off on it. And then also that his wife was like right there and he was, telling everybody and she was still there. It's genuinely, I couldn't write anything that horrific.
Wow. No, seriously. Yeah, I'm speechless on that. That's wild.
It's just something that like I don't tell as a fun anecdote so much as like with Static. I'm on while it's in my mind. I was like, you know what? If I say it here, it's somewhere people can come to where I've got a little diatribe about it. I don't feel like I'll ever really do a video because I've thought about doing a true crime thing, and I'm just like, you know what? It would just come off no matter what way I tried to do it. I don't want to make it about. I'm talking with you about it's fine as a moment of what it affected me, but making a video of how it affected me just would feel wrong. It would feel gross, and I just think
I understand.
It's not appropriate,
Yeah, no, it might be. I mean, I might do an episode on it. I mean, maybe I'll even have you on to talk about it more. I mean, who knows? I see what you're saying about, you just making a video about it at this point to talk about it. It's personal and all that. I get that, but that is a wild story. I mean, it's
insane. Now, the last thing I'll share with you is equally grim, but more about how a good way of dealing with grief. So, okay. I wrote this Antline series, which every chapter is a very different literary format. So chapter 1 is Gothic lit. Chapter 2 is like transcripts, like leaked call audio. Chapter 3 is second person with art history. Chapter 4 is all dialogue. When I got to chapter 5, I knew I wanted to do an autopsy transcript. Now, there are free autopsies out there, but I was a bit more macabre because my dad had just passed. So I asked the coroner if I could borrow the transcript and adapt my work and how it wrote based on that. And it is possibly the most macabre thing I've done. Well, I knew my dad would be proud of it, but like it's something that's really both cool and grim, but it also made me more connected because like I was like, man, yeah, this is kind of spooky. If you have an autopsy, this is kind of what you have to go through. And it was like super duper grim, but also really, really fucking cool at the same time.
Incredible stuff. I'll cut this out, but I don't want to overstep a boundary, but how did your dad pass away? Is that
Oh no, I don't mind it. It's public because we had to sue the hospital. And they changed the law in the UK. So my father had dementia, which is very well documented in my stories. For anyone who's followed me for enough times, like with There's Only Embers at the End, with Demi's Adventure, and with the Life Extension Plan, which is more about me and a relationship than it is with my dad. But my dad had dementia, and he went in with routine seizures. And I found him. I went back to my mom's house and I found him on the ground, and he was in a very deep seizure. He was not coming out of the cycle. He wasn't postictal. So I gave him his diazepam, which I had to force into his mouth, and he stopped breathing. And I brought him back to life. He wouldn't stop seizing. And so they took him in. And normally the way we had it down to a science, he would go and seize. He'd come out of it after a while, be very confused, wonder where he is. We'd I'd pick him up and drive him home, and after a day or so, he'd be all right. He was at stage 1 of vascular dementia. On that night, because it was COVID, an orderly was with him, but they were massively understaffed as the NHS was really struggling. And I will say, no matter what my feelings are, what happened, I would die for my healthcare system. Don't care, even though, and these people don't get it, like, but they killed your dad. I'm like, yeah, and I'd still die for them because I'd rather have medicine that I can access at any point. So they left him. He was post-ictal, meaning when you're out of a seizure, you're very confused, disoriented. He kept wandering, and he got out of the bed, and they kept trying to put him back in because if he had another seizure, he would hit the linoleum floor. Unfortunately, the orderly left his bedside when they shouldn't have done. They did not call me or my mom to come and sit at his side, which is now a legal requirement in the UK. It was not at that time. Had they done so, he would have been alive today. And so they left him alone. He got out. He had a seizure. He cracked his skull on the linoleum. Now, when you've had brain surgery, because they removed a grade 4 aneurysm from his brain, when you've had one, any head trauma, the lightest bump could send you. And he got seizures by tumbling into a bush while he was drunk. Like, so this was a death sentence. So after that point, I will spare the details, but he went from stage 1 to stage 6 of dementia, virtually overnight, more like stage 5 to stage 6. And he clung on for 3 months, and he died on June 13th, 2022, from complications following dementia, which, is basically pneumonia and the ability to not breathe. It was the worst thing I have ever gone through. There's nothing in my life that has ever come close to being on a dementia ward. And my second book, Draw Me a Clock, is going to be about taking horror and the transformative experimental horror styles I've coveted with this first book, which is all about being non-binary and the way that the world is kind of approaching gender and how evil people can be for people who just want to live their lives and, all that stuff. I've taken that personal aspect, and now I've taken all those skills to my dad, and it goes through that process of what it was like. And we sued the hospital. There was an inquest, and obviously we were successful. And the one good thing was that the law now is that if you have a vulnerable person of any capacity in the hospital in the UK or Scotland, they must call you if you are a carer, which we both were, to be at their side rather than just leaving them. And, there is still a lot of her, especially this time of year, where it's like he would still be alive, but also, and this is the hardest thing to consider, is like, would you want someone to go through dementia slowly over, he had 5 years to live, so he would be on his final year basically now, or would you speed run it? And I don't know the answer. I don't think anyone knows the answer to that. And it was really hard. I'd been his carer since I was 19. So all my 20s were basically spent caring for him, and now I'm living the life I am in his honor, doing things that would make him proud. But that was one thing where I was like, I need to honor his legacy, like do some cool shit. So like writing, he loved my writing. And I'm very blessed. And this is such a cool note to end on. There is such a truth in life as you get older, as you and I will know, that you don't get to say the things you want to say to people. You don't get to do the things you want to do to people. Part of life is you have half-ended conversations, unresolved arguments, loves that you didn't get to fully experience. It just happens. And that's kind of what you need to get on with it. But you always want, when you love someone, especially if it's a parent or a partner or whatever, you want the last thing you said to be something nice. And sometimes it isn't. For me, I am so blessed, so truly, truly blessed, that the last conversation I had with my dad, I was driving, I've got the picture on my phone to this day. And it was me just out of nowhere going, "Hey, Dad, are you proud of me?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm fucking proud of you. You write for a living. You do wrestling. You're happy. I'm very proud of you." I cannot tell you the weight that is worth. It is almost priceless to me. I would not give up anything in the world for that conversation. And I will say to anyone listening, if you have a loved one that is not well, or you just got a loved one you're unhappy with, if you've had an argument with them, sleep on it, wake up and talk to them tomorrow. And if it's not too late in the night, tell them now that it's okay. You forgive them, they forgive you. It is the greatest joy in life to know when I go to bed when I'm grieving, like I still am now this time of year, to know that is the last conversation I have with them. It's fucking amazing.
TJ Lea, everybody. The TJ Lea speaking into your souls right now. TJ, thank you for coming on. All of the things you have shared today on this episode about creepypasta, horror, as well as your life experiences, personal and otherwise, I can't thank you enough. Seriously, it's been a true pleasure having you on the show today.
So welcome, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And again, you guys, all the links to support Dusklight and TJ will be in the description. Please click and support, check out all of his content. And for those of you listening, this will not be TJ's first and only time on the Grinless podcast. I intend to have him on again, as with several of the other guests that you guys have seen. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode of Behind the Horror. I hope you are all taking care of yourselves, and I hope all of this information continues to help you. And I will see you guys on the next one.